Hello, everyone. This is Megan. We're going to get started here in a minute or two. We'll let everybody get connected with their audio and we'll have Kathy take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. How is everyone today? What's happening out there in South Dakota or Minnesota or wherever you're from? I'm in Oregon, of course, but how are people doing? Well, for me, it's morning. For you, it's probably closer to lunchtime, but if you're in Central Time. But I invite you to say hello and to just say hello, I guess. That's all I got to say. It's hello. Welcome back. Before we get started, we have a few housekeeping issues. I did some reflection on some of the feedback from last session, and I wanted to let people know my style of training is for you to interrupt. And I know that's not necessarily culturally appropriate sometimes, but my style of teaching is that you, polite, we'll be nice to each other, but if you don't tell me what's working, I won't know what's working. And so your voice becomes super important to me in my head. And those people who shared some feedback, their voice was loud in my head the last few days. So because of that, and because of my caring for you as learners, I want you to know that if we break up into a small group and you're not done with your conversation, that you have the right to say, we need more time. And that I would appreciate you just saying, we need more time. So please do so. It's important for me that you get the time you need to do the processes that you need to do. And secondarily, to respect that people are in different places in this learning process about motivational interviewing. Please send to us where you think you're at in your learning process. I'm a beginner. I actually have been exposed to motivational interviewing, and I need to learn a lot more, or I've been to several MI training events. I'm ready to go to the advanced stage of this practice. That will help us create smaller groups that allows for learning from peer to peer. So your homework assignment between now and a week from now, our next session will be a week from now, is to send us, you can do it in the chat. Is it okay, Ella, for them to do it in the chat room? Or Megan, can they do it in the chat room today? To let us know that, or do you want them to email it to you?
If you guys could email that to me, I'll put my email in the chat box right now, and that way it's a little more long-term than just this chat box, so that we can keep that on record for next week. That would be really great.
So yeah, so I'm kind of moving more towards small group practice towards the latter part of today and then next week. So we need to know how to mix and blend people so that people feel supported. And also that you meet your learning goals. Because I know listening to some of you, I can tell you're ready to talk about change talk like yesterday. And for some of you, you need to know what the ORs mean and what they stand for. So we have to have a mixture of experience in those small groups. All righty. Any questions, comments, concerns, confirmations before I start with doing a PowerPoint this morning? So maybe a question to ask is, how many of you were able to use some of the material or did your homework? the homework is always voluntary. It helps in the training experience, but I actually did the homework myself just so I could figure out what that experience was like with the values card sort that I sent out is a newer version than what I usually use. So I thought, well, I'll just send that out and see how it feels. So what I noticed in that was there was a couple of values that weren't in the values list. I went back and looked for them, but they weren't there. So I actually, for the first time, had an other category that I put in there. And there was a lot of reflection that I did by doing that card sort. So I'm hoping that you had some positive experience doing that. So that's one thing I reflected on. I also reflected on any of the experience I had with you from this week. And my aim is always to have the best training possible in the environment that we're in. Obviously, if I was in person with you, it'd be a very different experience, but I'm reaching out to you through the Zoom ozone layers to each one of you and looking at you with a kind heart to see how you're doing. And right now I'm looking at a lot of black screens, which is always it's always intimidating for me personally to not see a warm face. Except thank you, Killen, for being present with me there. I will tend to gravitate towards Jean and Kellen because I can see them and interact with them and see their facial expressions. So it just makes it a little bit easier for me. So thank you for being present with me in this environment because it is a challenge. So with that in mind, any thoughts? Kahomi, thank you so much. I appreciate your face. I appreciate seeing you. I see your hand. Yeah. Hi.
Hi. Good morning. This is Jean Nahomni Mani,
Hi, team.
and I really liked the homework. And you know, I had been in the telecom industry for so long, and now that I'm in the wellness career, I'm just absorbing as much as I can. But I did the homework, and I liked all of the little cards. I just like things like that. It's interactive, and I like cutting paper, and you know, because it's kind of, to me, it's creative. And then this morning, I looked at it again, and I recategorized some of the little cards, and I found it was it helped refresh me. I woke up with horrible allergies, and last night I had a rough night. And then when I got to thinking about this meeting, I thought, do you know what? Get ready, put your best foot forward. And, you know, with COVID and staying home, you kind of, you know, put the bun up and, you know, get dressed and sit at the computer all day. So I decided, I thought, you know, I'm going to put makeup on, and I dug through my earrings. And so I felt good about coming to this session because I want to invest in myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to tell you, I was first confused by the title of this, you know, motivational interviewing, because I kept going, you always think of like motivational speakers, but now I understand it better. And when I redid my cards, I found that I was, I pat myself on the back. I went through it pretty fast because then I was like, at first I thought it was going to take me longer because, you know, you have to put some thought into how you feel about certain values and virtues. And then but that motivated me to think about what's important to me. And I started another goal, a list of goals, and whether it's for today or, you know, next month or the future. So I was very appreciative for this training. So I'm glad we're having it. And I hope everyone can find something to take away with them to help improve themselves, you know, and their positions, and, you know, whatever their interact with, you know, family or communities or work. But yeah, so I I had a headache, but I'm here and I'm ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I get allergies, but not like you're describing, but I do get allergies, so I understand. And thank you for sharing your experience about the values card sort. That's a key thing that I use with all of the people that I've tried to help. It's important to understand where people are coming from and what is important to them. So thank you for sharing that. Anybody else want to offer a reflection or thought about anything? It doesn't have to be the values card sort, but, oh, by the way, I think, and I'll check with Ella and Megan about this, but you'll be getting a nice card set sent to you in the mail. So it won't be so, in a PDF format, but I think we'll be doing that as part of your training experience. Isn't that right? Well, anyway, I think that's what we're planning on doing.
Yeah, we're gonna try and get everybody's addresses so we can send them personally to you. And the students are gonna put those together in the office to send out before August and all that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I have a little tiny dog, and he decides to bark and interrupt things, so I have to turn my mute off and on. Anyone else have a reflection that they would like to share with us before I go into a slideshow? Thank you for all the beautiful faces that I can now see. Appreciate it. Hi. The real Kellen James. So I'm not sure how that happened, but okay. There's two of you?
So our team, when we send out links so like no one had the link to the Zoom account. So I sent my Zoom link and everyone showed up under my name. So
yeah.
The young man is Keaton. He's the clown of the group. And then our new navigator, Sabrina, she hasn't had a chance to introduce herself yet, but I'm trying to this is her first session joining us. I'm trying to tell her how to change her name.
Oh, yeah.
If it would be helpful, I can, before we have our training go on, I can always send out basically it resends the registration confirmation email that you should have received when you first signed up or registered. So I just didn't want it to be confusing to people if you got an email that said you registered for this event, but if that would help people have their own links, and that kind of helps us with participation, I can always do that if you guys think that would be helpful. So I just don't want to send it and then people, get confused, but that would be helpful. I'd be more than happy to do that the morning of each training.
Well, why don't we just plan on that? Now I can see Keaton's name. Thank you, Keaton. And did you say somebody else was joining under your name? Oh, there she is. I see her. And that is, sorry. And that is, what did you say, Sabrina? Kellen, is that who you said it was, Sabrina?
Yeah.
Oh, there she is. Hi. You made it. Yay. Okay. Well, it's your first time here, right? So this is your first session.
This is my first time. I'm in my first week of employment.
Oh, wow. Brand new. Okay. So last week, people got a chance to talk about their exposure to motivational interviewing. What has been your exposure to motivational interviewing? We'll ask you since you're new, and then you will have done your homework. So is this your first time learning about motivational interviewing? Is it you've been exposed to it, or you've had a lot of training in it?
No, this will be my first time
Okay.
experiencing something like this.
Okay, great. Thanks for letting us know. Perfect. Okay, any other comments? And then unfortunately, there's dogs walking by my front door. I have 3 huge glass pane windows and a little 10-pound mini dachshund who likes to talk. So I'll do my best. I might come in and out here. Any final thoughts, questions? All right. Me too. I love Oregon too. Come and visit anytime. Okay. In fact, I'll tell you a story about my last time in Eagle Butte. That's where my family's from, is Eagle Butte. Yeah, yeah. You look familiar. I went to. Pardon? Pardon?
Oh, I'm a widow and a cook. I'm from
A widow and a cook.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was in the hotel on the reservation when I was visiting. My uncle passed away. He was a former council member there decades ago. And he was quite a local character, but I'm gonna have to out-talk my dog. But anyway, some women, young women, were in the hotel cleaning, and I introduced myself and I said, "Hi, how you doing?" And we got to chatting, and they said to me, "Oh, there's Indians outside of South Dakota, outside the reservation." And I said, "Oh yeah, they're all over the place." and she said, "I didn't know there were Indians off, out of my area." And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "We're probably cousins somewhere." And I said, "Hey, by the way, just come to Oregon. I'll put you up and we'll visit and get to know where our family connections are." And they were like, "Oh yeah, I really want to come, and I want to get off the reservation and all of that." But they were so sweet and so fun to chat with. And of course, there's a lot of hunters at that time that came into the hotel, and they were kind of, doing their hunter thing. And of course, these young women were being ignored. So of course I stepped in and I acknowledged them and thanked them for cleaning my sister and my mother in my room. And we just sat and had a nice little conversation. So that was my one of my last trips from to Eagle Butte, was when my uncle passed away. Anyway, spent my summers in Eagle Butte. Loved the area. That's a little bit of my Eagle Butte history. Riding horses and hanging out with my grandparents, that kind of thing. Yeah, nice to meet you too, cousin. All right, so let's go back to MI and see what we can learn today from each other. So session 2. Here we go. So just so you know, for me, what PowerPoints are all about, it's just a visual way of offering information. And from my perspective, it's not the only way, it's not the way, it's just my way of organizing information. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I messed that up. Okay, where did it go? Oh, I made the mistake of closing it. Okay, well, please offer me some prayers so that I can get this going again without too much hassle.
Talk her through it, Ella. Talk her through it.
Yeah, the pressure's on.
Oh, no worries.
Here we go. All right. I got to close this down. Then I got to go back in, and then there it is. So sorry about that hiccup. So here we are, and what I was trying to do is go to slideshow. There we go.
Looks great.
Okay. So what are we going to do today? We're going to advance our knowledge and experience and practice by talking about the 4 processes of change. And then we're going to do some discussion on engagement and a little practice, and then focus in a practice. And so what we're covering today, and we probably will pick it up next time too, is the ORs. And those of you who've had a lot of motivational interviewing training, this is going to sound very familiar to you, but we're going to be practicing. These are the primary client-centered relational skills that you would use in operationalizing motivational interviewing. So that's what we're doing today. So I'm going to start with what does MI say about how change occurs? And if you look at the bottom rung here, engaging. So that's number 1. And we talked a lot, and part of the homework was for you to be in touch with your own spirit and your own sense of self in relationship to how do I engage in life around change. The second thing is, how do I engage in life around change with another person? So engagement is the first process. So without engagement, these other things fall down. The second one is focusing, which is a particular type of way of identifying what a person is going to change specifically. And during our last session to now, I thought about that a lot when people volunteered how to use MI with certain problematic areas, such as interpersonal violence or suicidal issues, maybe some legal issues, maybe something that's really a challenge for people to address and change, substance use issues. So I spent some time thinking about how to offer this to you in the practice of motivational interviewing. The 4 stages of evoking, which means calling forth. The way I like to think about it is, in ceremony, you can call forth something that you either share with others, share with family, or just share with yourself or a close friend, or within a close relationship. It's what do I want to say about where I'm at, and then what do I want to offer? So evoking is about offering, and it's also, if I'm using motivational interviewing to help somebody through a change process, it's about asking or calling forth their own thoughts, their own experiences, their own feelings related to what kind of pressure they're feeling, either internally or externally, to change. Planning is actually once somebody focuses, you engage with them, there's a focus, a clear focus. They talk about what the focus is, and then planning is how to go about making a change once they are ready to make that change. So we're going to talk about using the ORs to operationalize that process of change. Okay, now this is something that that I found in the nursing literature that I thought was a little bit better description of engagement in terms of what do you need from the person you're trying to help. So how do you define engagement? And I like the way that they organize this. So you can read that: the desire, capability to actively choose to participate in care in a way uniquely appropriate to the individual, in cooperation with the healthcare. So that's it. That's that relationship for the purposes of maximizing outcomes or experiences of care. So that's medical. That's from a medical experience, but it can be behavioral. And then what are the traits or characteristics? So if I'm trying to help somebody, is it personalized to them? You know, is it about them? Or is it more about me, or it's more about like a program expectation or a goal that I have that isn't shared? And can I access the resources to be able to make the change? And I think this is huge. So if I need, let's say I need to get an assessment for substance use problems, where's the place I'm going to get the assessment? And can I get there? Do I have the gas money? Do I have the childcare so that I can go if I have children? Am I going to get in trouble with a spouse or a partner if I go because it threatens them? Do I think I have a problem? So why should I go? I mean, all of these things factor into a person being able to access that type of assessment, but also feeling confident that they should do it. And then how committed am I? And that we're going to talk a lot about readiness assessment. I hope that that's not annoying. Am I committed that I'm motivated enough to want to learn and improve what other people are seeing or what I'm seeing that is problematic? And then the alliance is how can I use my own self with the support of the other, the helper, to sustain a change and to become better, if you will, if I choose to engage with that change. So I think a big part of change, when you're a change agent, you're a change helper, is to keep a connection with somebody over time. My history is I work with a lot of adolescents and young adults. There's a way that I had to work with them where I felt connected to them and they felt connected to me over time, because a lot of times it was working. They come to a session and then they not come to a session, and weeks would go by and then I'd see them again. But I'd had to be able to keep a rhythm going and a connection going with them in terms of my relationship with them. Okay. So motivational interviewing is based on relationship. It's based on your ability to engage in a productive relationship that's person-centered, where you listen and you understand their values and dilemmas. And that's why I had you consider your own values. What values do you have that motivates certain behavior with you? And then to skillfully use the ORS skill set to walk people through that process. Okay. So here they are, the ORS. Open-ended questions, affirmations, reflective listening, and summary. And I'm going to go through each one of those, and then we'll practice along the way. All right. And by the way, even though it says 1, 2, 3, 4 on the slide, they don't interact in that way. If I were to redo this, I would put listen reflectively as number 1, affirm is number 2, maybe throw in an open-ended question, and then summarize along the way, or summarize a conversation at the end of the conversation. So even though they're, I think they just did that for the acronym ORS, even though it says ORS, it's not OARS. It's really the most important one is the RAOS, but the acronym doesn't work so well, but you get the point. So reflection is really important. So let's go through some open-ended questions. Typically, an open-ended question, it requires more than a yes or no response. So what day were you born? Okay, well, I was born July 14th. Okay. How old are you? Well, I am going to be 68 on July 14th. So it doesn't require me as the recipient of the question to respond in an elaborate way. But if somebody said to me, describe your birth experience, what did your mother say to you? What did your father say to you, or your older sibling say to you that they remember about the day you were born? Okay, well, that requires a lot more response from me. And so I could say, I have two older brothers. So I came along as the first girl, and my father was ecstatic about that. My mother actually didn't have a preference, but my father wanted a little girl, and I showed up, and we've been close ever since. So that's how it would require me to say more with that kind of request. So questions can be yes or no. And if you're going to engage with somebody, you've got to ask questions that are more open, because it requires them to offer more information. Now, they can always say, well, I don't want to tell you. A lot of times young people will say that. Well, I'm afraid you're going to tell my relatives I'm afraid you're going to tell my relatives if I tell you something. So then you'd say, well, you'd have to discuss the relationship and say, well, you have confidentiality here, for example, and I'm not going to run off and share your response to anybody except maybe a supervisor or somebody in the clinic or somebody who I work with that is trying to help you, but it would not go beyond that. When you're doing open-ended questions, you're there for a particular reason. You have a role, and depending on what your role is, I'm a home health worker, I'm a counselor, I'm a healthcare practitioner, whatever your role is, then you would focus on the interests of that person within your role. Here's some examples. What areas of your situation are important to you that we should discuss today? Is broad. It's the intention. Now, that's the other thing I want to say. With open-ended questions, it's the intention of the question, which is sort of an assumption. So the intention of a question, any question that starts off with what or how or describe and the intention is for it to be more open than closed, versus do. Like a do you, is a do you entry into a question is yes or no often. Do you like pizza? Do you dance? Do you do ceremony? What kind of ceremony is your favorite? That's an open-ended question versus do you do ceremony? When's the last time you did Sundance? Those are closed questions. Now, I don't want to give you the impression that closed questions are wrong, because they're not. It's just, if you want to engage, which is what we're talking about, you have to be more open. And then you can ask closed questions. You just don't want closed questions to be the only type of questions that you ask. So let me stop here for a second. All right. Think about your role. What is your role when you're working with people and you want to use motivational interviewing? And using the chat box function or coming on screen and letting me hear you or letting us hear you. What is your role, and what kind of questions would you be asking somebody who came in to see you, or you went to see them, however that works, where your goal is to engage with them? So let's hear some examples from you. And just write down one or two, or think about one or two. And then go ahead and offer them to me and just tell us what your role is. How would you be seeing people? Now, your role could be that you're more of a supervisor or manager. And if that's true, use your relationship with the people you're supervising as a way to ask an open-ended question. So that's, if you want to use that approach, that would work as well. So let's hear from you, or let's read from you, depending on your comfort level. What are some examples that you use that you found to be effective when you're trying to get to know somebody?
So when I first meet my participants, because they're minors, a lot of them don't know why they're signed up for a program. So I ask them, what makes you feel that, what makes you feel you wanted to be in this program, or what do you think about, our program, or how do you see yourself connect to our program? I ask kind of questions to see their bridge to our program and what we do, and why they think they signed up for it, and why they think their family thought they should sign up for it. So a lot in those windows, because we do a suicide intervention program, and a lot of them, it could be anxiety, it could be trauma, it could be a lot of things, but it invites them a chance to kind of share their perspective or their story. And a lot of them, it's like to learn about the culture, and that's where I lead into that with where they think they're coming from. So I kind of let their response guide our first initial meetings.
Yeah, and here's a suggestion. Oh, here's some more. Let me just look at, how can I support you right now? Or yeah, if you're a manager type person, what do you need from me? Those are open-ended. And so, Jean is saying, yeah, who their parents or grandparents are, so they get comfortable. Okay, so that's a generational bridge, if you will. Yeah, and when you're older and you're not familiar with the younger age population, yeah, how comfortable are you talking to me? I used to ask that of kids all the time. It's like, I'm a lot older than you, so what do you think about our age difference, and how are we connecting here? And actually, a lot of the young people that I worked with preferred somebody older. They didn't like it. I have a 50-year career now, and over the course of starting, the toughest years for me with young people were when I was their parents' age. So when I was their parents' age, I had less credibility with them. But when I got to be the grandparent age, that was their favorite age to talk to me. So that's, hopes that helps you out, Jean. What do you need with me, or what do you want to learn? What are your interests? That's cool. Here's mine. That's cute. So connecting on shared and common interests or goals. So let me offer to you an open-ended question that I think you could ask across the board. And it kind of helps you figure out readiness. And so here it is. Are you ready? I'm pounding on my desk. I'm drumming on my desk. What motivated you to come here and see me today? Okay, now that question, oh, and then here's the other one. As you're talking with people and you reflect, we'll get into that in a second. Here's the other question. What else? Okay, now those two questions actually help me work the MI process, because I'm then pulling from them their own wisdom, their own motivation, and that tells me what I need to do next in terms of using an MI approach. The what else question, I tried never to make the assumption that just because somebody responds to me, that that's all they're thinking about. So when I ask what else, so I do what else, reflect, reflect, what else, reflect, reflect, until they say that's it. Because I really want to know the whole story. I don't want to know a piece of the story. I want to know the whole story. So those two questions can help you really hone your MI approach, because MI is about motivation, readiness, willingness, ability. And the what else question allows me to see a whole picture, a whole story about an area that you're talking to them about. So those are some tips for you. All of these questions are very good open-ended questions in the chat box and what Kellen shared. What are some closed questions that you might ask that are kind of standard for you, that are appropriate for you, that you would like to share? So let me see if I can come up with one. Sometimes with young people, after I've done some engagement with them, I will ask them, do you want to be here? And that actually gets quite a bit of a response, because they're there out of respect for maybe they're curious, they're there because somebody puts pressure on them, and they're coming out of respect for that. It might be a legal issue where they have to show up because the negative side of not showing up is not attractive. But it also throws young people off when you ask them, do you want to be here? Because people just assume if you're there, you want to be there. And I don't always assume that. So that's an example of a closed question that you might ask. The thing about open and closed questions, it's really that you're not just asking closed questions. So for example, if you're doing an assessment, a lot of times those questions are closed. How old are you? Where were you born? Who is your family? Where are you from? Do you speak a second language? Is this English your first language? Those are all closed questions that maybe we need to know. But if that's all they're getting from us, the engagement is going to go down. The goal is to engage. Yes.
Honestly, one of the things we always ask in our program, that are very direct is, have you had any recent thoughts of suicidal ideation, death, thoughts of death, any thoughts about recent self-harm? And then if they answer then like yes, then that's when I use more open-ended questions. So I kind of pair them together.
Yeah.
So I do that.
Give us an example. Let's say they say yes to one of those areas. What might you ask after that?
Sometimes it's really broad. Can you tell me more about that? What are those thoughts saying? Can you give me an example of how those thoughts have been presenting? I just kind of have them explore more and giving detail. Then I go from there, can you give me an example what those thoughts are saying to you? Or I said, tell me an example of what these thoughts are saying, and then more open-ended question might be, about what have you been doing to help you through these thoughts? So I look for strengths as well. What they've been doing up until this point to get them through the week.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. That's a good follow-up. Let's think about, can I use one of your questions as an example for something else, Kellen? Okay, so let's see. You said, well, what are your thoughts telling you? And there was another question you used that I wanted to pull out and put a highlight on about an assumption behind a question. So if you said, and you can remind me, if you say, what are those thoughts telling you? You get a response. And then you'd say, what's your plan to deal with those thoughts? That's another open-ended question. What's the assumption behind what's your plan to deal with those thoughts? What do you think the assumption behind that question is? Anybody?
That there's a plan.
Pardon?
That there's a plan.
Well, yeah, that they've thought about planning, that's one. What's another assumption?
That they know how to address.
That they
Why?
know how,
Yeah, that they know how, so.
yeah.
I also think it could be, if I said, you know, what's your plan to address those thoughts or something like that, it could be something, it could go either way to helping you make a safety plan. Because sometimes their mind, it'll show you where their mind is at in terms of, oh, this is how I'm coping with it versus, no, I feel like I'm going to do something negative. So I guess that's an interesting one. I've never used that one.
Well, yes, and there's an underlying assumption behind what we engage with. That question assumes that people want to change. Do you hear the assumption now? Okay. What we find in engagement processes is people don't necessarily want to change, or that they have mixed feelings about changing. And so that's the art of MI. This is the heart and soul from my perspective. Spirit and style, heart and soul of MI is my ability to live, especially with suicidal issues, to live with someone who's highly ambivalent about living. That's the heart and soul of it. So I have, and it could be, I'm ambivalent about stopping opioids. I'm ambivalent about going back home. I'm ambivalent about whether I want to stay on the planet or not. I'm ambivalent. So all of us experience ambivalence in life. As adults, particularly, we've lived enough life to have experienced some ambivalence. Sometimes it's life-changing, and sometimes it's simple, like, should I change my job or not? Should I go to school or not? Should I buy a new car? That's simple, not life-threatening. To should I leave my family and friends behind? Okay, so let's consider that on all of the, sorry, I'm getting some noise in my phone. Let's consider that idea of readiness and ambivalence on all of these processes, because that is, if you can help somebody resolve an ambivalent struggle using an MI approach, that's what this is about. And sometimes the struggle for us is living in the moment with someone who has a lot of ambivalence about why I'm there to help them. And that can be difficult because you feel that ambivalence, you can feel it, and you feel the struggle of being in a state of ambivalence, especially with something serious like suicidal tendencies. That's pretty serious. Or very harmful substance abuse or substance use issues, or serious health problems, whereby if they don't get better, things are going to be tragic endings for them. That kind of living with someone's ambivalence around something like that, it's stressful on us as people. Using an MI approach, though, is our way out of it. It's our way out of that stress. It's our way into being more helpful. It's a way to connect with that person's suffering without feeling like you're not doing anything helpful. So that's kind of an aside thing, but I want you to keep that up front and center when we go through using these skills within the scenarios that your role with people that you're there to help. So comments or questions, and I'll just move on. Okay.
I think,
yeah.
As I say, I think what you just said is one of the things I've learned is that when they're ambivalent about getting help, so like if you're trying to, when they have a plan, we have to take them,
Yeah.
in due diligence, but I still use a lot of MI because when they're ambivalent, it's best if they're the ones that can commit themselves rather than damaging that rapport and forcing them to go. So I've sat with some youth probably for like 2.5 hours until like either we had a solid safety plan, or they were like, they've made that choice, and so it's like a real brief intervention MI, not like a long-term one, but it's one in that
Right.
moment I used because I've learned it's really helped with maintaining the rapport I've had with youth that I've had to get admitted.
Yeah, especially with that place with young people where developmentally they're trying to have more independence, not less. And having somebody who will sit with them while they're struggling with that is super important. That isn't going to judge them, it's going to accept. That's what we talked about last session was, I'm going to accept you where you're at. I'm not going to be judging where you're at. And I'm going to be with you until there's no need to be with you anymore, which is kind of nice because in other settings, you have a time limit. It's nice you don't have a time limit because I think things could get resolved with a longer time limit if that was possible. If it's not, if you're in a time limited situation, then how do I keep that engagement? How do I keep the door open? How do I reach out to, I worked in a healthcare setting for decades. When a kid and when there was like this pressure of time, I had a certain amount of time to work with them. But if I wasn't done or they weren't done, I would call them. I would use the phone to text them. I did what in that time was considered a non-traditional way of reaching out to them, using their life experience versus trying to fit them in a mold that didn't work for them. Okay, so let's move back to the next one. Thank you for sharing, by the way. I appreciate all your comments and involvement. Okay. So reflections are statements, they're not questions. And reflections are things that we offer back to people based on what they've said to us. They're about them. If you're just learning MI and you want to get better at doing reflections, start with the word you. So it's you said this, you offered that, etc. So that it trains you to think about focusing on what they're saying. And also be aware it's okay to be wrong because you're human and we sometimes hear things wrongly, and so we offer it back as a statement. I'm hearing you say blah, blah, blah. Or you are saying whatever. You are saying you're not ready to create a plan for change. And then it's like a period at the end of a statement. It's not a raised voice at the end of a question. I'm hearing you're not ready to create a plan for change. I'm hearing you're not ready to create a plan for change. So the raised tone of voice at the end makes it a question. Reflections that express high levels of empathy are the best, ideally. You're not always going to get high levels of empathy, but if you can aim towards a high level of empathy, that's better than a low level. So what does that mean? What that means is that there's different kinds of reflective statements. And I'm going to do a demonstration with Ella to show you that. It's easier to demonstrate than to talk about it. So we'll talk about that in a second. The difference between a simple reflection and a more complex reflection. And with this attitude of MI spirit attitude. Okay, so what that means is what we talked about in our last session, that we're coming at you from a spirit of acceptance, a spirit of not being judgmental, a spirit of not trying to change you in the moment, a spirit of listening well to you, of affirming you, of all of those pieces of the MI spirit that we talked about last time. Okay, so Ella, let's just do a quick demonstration.
Okay.
I hit Ella up with this at the last minute, but she's graciously agreed to work with me on this. So thank you, Ella. Okay. And then we'll go check in on the chat room and then come back. So what I'm going to demonstrate is just reflective listening to whatever Ella presents to us. So Ella's going to tell us a story, and then I'm going to offer some reflections of different levels of degrees of empathy. So we'll do about, I don't know, let's try about 5 minutes. Hold on a sec. I'm going to get my timer out so I don't lose track of time, because I tend to do that.
Are we gonna do a back and forth, or do you just want me to kind of do
Yeah.
a case study thing?
No, we'll do back and forth. So let's just start with, well, I'll start. Now, usually interactions start with an open-ended question, so I'll just start. Ella, today, what would you like to talk about today?
Well, I'm having a lot of anxiety, and I just don't feel like the past few months have been normal for me. So I just wanted to come in and talk to someone.
Your anxiety is getting the best of you right now.
Yeah, I'm just feeling really stuck, and I feel like there's just like a lot of ways that my life is about to go in, and I just don't know what I'm gonna do. And I feel like I just think about it every day, all the time. Like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And I just don't really know at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It sounds like there's a lot of pressure on you. And that pressure creates even a little bit more anxiety, it sounds like. And there's a part of you that wants to kind of resolve it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I guess what's been going on with me is that I have a degree, but I think I want to go back to school. And I found a program that I really like, but it's really far away, and I kind of feel excited whenever I read the stuff about the program, and like the deadline is literally like a month from now to get all my paperwork in. But I feel like every time I go to fill out the paperwork, or even just like talking to people about it, I feel like I can't do it. And like I immediately just start feeling those feelings of like, I can't possibly leave, and I don't want to leave my community. I don't want to leave my tribe and all the cultural stuff. So I feel really pulled in two different areas, or two different directions, I guess.
Yeah. So on the one hand, you're pretty scared about making the change. And on the other, there's this pull. It's kind of like something's pulling you forward, almost like it's internal pressure to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
But that has implications for your life and the quality of your life as you know it.
Right. And they emailed me and they said all these great things, that they would help me and my finances would be covered and stuff, which is a big deal. But every time I talk to my friends about it, it kind of seems like they're excited for me, but it's also like a hesitation. And so it's hard for me to like gauge what people really need, because I always feel like I can't really trust what they're really thinking, because I feel like they want me to go, but they want me to stay. So it's hard to like listen to other people.
It's possible that that's true, that people do want you to go, but they want you to stay. That's probably true for you and your friends.
Yeah. And I guess I just don't want, if I did put in all this work to go there, I just worry like if I get too homesick, I might end up just coming back anyways. So
Mhm.
I kind of do loops in my head. Like if I go,
Yeah.
I might fail anyway, but if I don't go, I just feel like, well, what if it did work out, you know? So I just feel kind of stuck.
Yeah, it's hard to live in the unknown, isn't it?
Yeah.
That- yeah,
And
yeah, that's hard.
I feel like that's the big thing pulling me there, is that I kind of want a new start after, you know, the past year just being kind of locked away from the
Yeah.
pandemic. I feel like I just need something new. But I just don't want to sacrifice all of the aspects of my community either.
The good things in life for you. Yeah.
Ella, if you don't go, you'll never know whether you made a sacrifice or not, right? You gotta, that leaving, for me, leaving our small town and going to college and then deciding to move to Minnesota and leave everybody behind was the best thing I ever did. And I grew so much. And then I came back and it's okay. So I just feel like I know where your head is, because I can tell you've been, you know, wanting to make changes, but you're kind of struggling with whether you should or not. But if you don't do it, you'll never know, and you can always come back. Just my 2 cents.
Well,
And-
we're trying to just do reflections right now. So let's
Gotcha.
just stick with that. Although thank you for encouraging Ella.
Yeah, this
We
is very
all-
true.
we-
This is actually
Yeah,
happening.
right. We all here at our center want to encourage Ella because we see her potential, but it's really more about, okay, feeling anxious about making that changes is normal. It's a normal process anytime we make a change like that. However, focusing more on your anxiety and your ambivalence. We did about 5 minutes of reflection. I'm coming to a point where I'm ready to ask an open-ended question, but I'm not going to, because the point of the demonstration is to just reflect. But let's just stop here. You know, now that that's happened, let's go back to you, Ella, and you can share with people, what was that like for you? What was that interaction like for you?
I guess I was drawing on myself from a year ago where I was actually in this situation. And I definitely, it was like, it was easy to get back into that headspace where it's like everything's a possibility, but nothing's really real, and feeling tugged by different directions. And I think what happens for me, especially because I do have anxiety, especially with big life stuff like this, is my thoughts do swirl a lot, and it is like very repetitive all the time, to the point where it feels very heavy. And so I think in a session where I'm just kind of given a space where I get a little bit of that feedback, where it's like a few words and like helping me feel like there is someone listening, but it's still open enough where I can express all of the chaos going on in my head. And it almost, like when I say it out loud, it almost sounds way more simple than I had it in my head.
That's interesting.
Yeah. That's
So
how
when you say way more simple, meaning the experience of it was not as complicated as what it felt like inside your head.
Yes.
Okay.
In my head, it feels like big and almost just like, almost like want to avoid it, because it's just like, oh, that's too big of a change, and don't really want to think about it until I absolutely have to. And even just giving like a comfortable space to unload it, it's like, oh, I thought I would have to talk for an hour, to get all this off my chest, but it's just like 5 minutes. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
really positive. Yeah, I feel positive.
So the relief came just by being able to voice it to another person who would listen to you and not do anything more than listen. Okay. All right. Now, I'm going to go to the larger group, and I'm going to ask the larger group. By the way, thank you, Ella, for being real and also engaging in that demonstration for us. Okay, so back to the larger group. What did you notice now that you have what I did and what Ella's experience is, what did you notice in terms of reflections? And for those of you who have MI training, who are more versed in MI, the range of reflections, so we can learn a little bit more about that.
I think what's valuable with those reflections is you let her, by reflecting, you let her expand on her own thoughts and let her kind of verify, you know, where she's at and expand on them. And I think that was something that you did a lot of reflection questions that really just kind of helped her get to a point of like reading her mind, I guess, of verifying what she thinks so that she would be ready for open-ended questions.
Yeah. Yeah, that's were there any of you, did you have like a feeling like you wanted to ask her more questions? Well, it was 5 minutes, but still. Did any of you want to ask a question or felt an inclination to want to ask, clarify it some more for her, or were you all pretty comfortable just doing reflections or listening, actually?
I thought it was really, honestly, that felt really natural and organic, like an organic conversation to me. So I didn't even think about asking a question, listening to you visit with her. It just seemed like you were visiting, and it kind of really helped with building rapport and making it sound like you were really genuinely listening to her and trying to understand without like interrupting or trying to talk at or, give advice or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was just genuinely trying to understand. So to me, it felt kind of natural.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Kellen. Anyone else? Any observations? Think about your own comfort level of just talking to somebody without asking any questions. How comfortable would you feel?
I noticed that what you did is you kind of reflected back or on her question. I don't know what that's called, when you kind of repeat back what they said.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what I was thinking is that their reflection is actually a very important part of getting someone comfortable to speaking with you. So and kind of save the closed-end questions maybe after you get them comfortable with speaking with you.
Yeah, at some point in any interaction, you have to ask a question in that process because she will have the person you're talking to, and in my case, Ella, she will have already said all she needed to say. And I've already reflected back that at some point for us to help her at that time in her life, which was a year ago, I guess now, or probably before a year ago, is at some point I'd want to move towards, my strategy would be to move towards helping to ease the pain of the anxiety. But I'm not doing that right now. I'm just engaging. I'm just listening. I'm just being present with somebody who is anxious. I don't have an agenda of easing her anxiety. My agenda is just to listen without trying to ease that anxiety, but just to listen, to build that engagement.
I have a question.
Yes.
Just from my experience, I guess when somebody's sharing, is it rude to ask them more questions? Or are we just supposed to be comfortable with what they're sharing with us?
Could you give me an example when you say, is it rude? Tell me more. What's an example?
You asked us if we normally ask people more questions when we're talking to them. And Ella's example that she gave us was very informative. So I felt like there was no need to pry or ask more questions. But there's been times where individuals aren't as forthcoming or don't give as much information. And so I've just learned with my own experience that just to be comfortable with what they share with us at that time. But I know the point of motivational interviewing is to kind of get them on board, to, you know, have them be the one doing and leading, you know, their own change. So would it be rude to, you know, inquire more if they weren't as forthcoming as to why they're feeling anxious, or, you know, just they're not very receptive or putting out that much. So you kind of gotta ask more questions. Is it, with motivational interviewing, is it rude to pry more, ask questions to get more out of them?
I don't think of it as rude versus, it's more of like a strategy. You're not going to strategize to be rude, obviously. It's really more about what can I do to engage this person. So you're bringing up a pretty good, you're bringing up a good point in that not all clients are going to be as open as Ella was. I think the struggle with somebody who's not as verbal is really to pay attention more to their nonverbals and to see how they're responding to you nonverbally. And then the reflection could be about that. It could be about, I noticed you seem to be thinking very hard about what we're talking about, like as an example. It's not rude. It's just if a person gets too many questions, then you take the risk of somebody just shutting down. And that's what we're trying to avoid, is we're trying to avoid somebody shutting down and just kind of being present with you and just waiting for you to take full responsibility for the interaction. So you said you had experience. So that tells me that you have a way of engaging people that works for you with more of a nonverbal person. The question is, using in terms of motivational interviewing, it'll be the next phase of the change process, is how do you stay person-centered and get them to focus on a change? And it's usually behavioral change that we're looking at. So let's keep that conversation. Let's keep our minds and hearts open to that type of patient. And then how do you engage somebody who is more nonverbal or might be scared or may not have a lot of insight? How do you engage them around what you're there to engage them around? So the context becomes important. So just to help me understand, what is your context, Eltina? What is your role with people?
So I am actually a case manager in our behavioral health department. And so majority of people that do come to me in my professional environment are just needing, additional resources in the community. But I seem to be like a beacon for people who struggle outside, in my personal life, and people are always coming to me, venting to me, telling me their problems. And sometimes, I don't know if they want me to, just listen to let them vent, or if they want me to help them with changing. And sometimes, I want to ask them questions, but more often than not, I just let them lead the conversations, connect with them. And sometimes at the end, some of them are really intense problems, as far as suicidal ideations. And so sometimes I'm like, what do you want me to do with this information? So So at the end of that conversation, out of respect for them, what would you like me to do with this information? Are you just venting, or would you like me to help you? So that's kind of where I've hoping to use this training. All around.
Well, if you're in a professional role, definitely this is something you can do. If you're in a outside of professional role, you're still being a a behavioral health person, you still have a professional responsibility to them, but not necessarily that you have to do everything. So, for example, if somebody outside of your work says to you, my uncle is abusing my younger daughter, say, okay, you have ethically a professional responsibility to report that. And that's why I always say to people, don't tell me things you don't want me to report, because professionally, under the guidelines I have to follow, I'm responsible for that young person getting abused. Not that I have to intervene, not that I have to go confront anybody, but that I have to report it. So if you're in a situation where people do come to you because of who you are and how you listen to them and your kindness towards them, then you have to tell people up front, if you tell me something that's pretty egregious and I have to report it, I just want you to know that I will report it. That's different than, oh, gee, somebody, this happened to me and I don't know what to do. And I know you're a good listener. That's your reputation. So you're a good listener. I would do just what you said, which is, what would you like me to do with this information? That's a good open-ended question, but it doesn't make you responsible necessarily. Go ahead, you were going to say something.
I've been a mandatory reporter before, so I've let them know too that the information that they have told me before, I would be obligated to report. So I've had to use that information given to me and move forward with it before. So
yeah. So let's go back to your original question, which is, would it be rude to ask questions? The answer is no. It's really the strategy. What do you want to get out of the interaction? What would be helpful from your view within the interaction? Only doing reflections is limiting. It's important. It's probably one of the most important skills, but it's also limiting if that's all you do. At some point, you're going to have to ask a question. And you mix and blend the ors. You don't just do reflections. But reflections are the most underutilized skill in motivational interviewing. That's why we spend a lot of time with it, is people don't do reflections, or they don't do deep reflections. And it's really, in terms of the engagement change process, it's really the skill to keep engagement going. So for example, somebody said, let's see, where was that? Yeah, Jamie is asking, how do you get them to keep coming back? And I wanted to get back to that question. Engagement is about keeping them to come back, right? So if I am doing good listening, if you will, and I'm showing empathy, they're going to come back. Even if they don't engage in a change process, they will come back. However, you also want to reach out to them. So sometimes our structures in our work life may be set up that we don't reach out to people, but you might have to create some ways of reaching out to people, even if they physically don't show up again with you. So if I am worried about somebody, I'll call them, I'll text them, I'll do whatever I can to let them know I still care about them. But if you think about it with your life, if you somebody said you got to go talk to Jamie about blank, whatever blank is, and I'm kind of reluctant and I don't know if I want to or whatever, and I show up because of pressure, both internal and external. And Jamie is the nicest person I've ever met in my whole life. Basically, she listens to me, she doesn't judge me, she accepts me, she empathizes with my desire not to be there, she pays attention to me, versus a Jamie who does the exact opposite which one am I more likely wanting to go back and see? It's just human nature. If I have to go and the person's nice to me, oh gee, well, okay, it can't be that bad, might be my thought. Or if Jamie acts like I expect her to act, which is, how old are you? Where were you born? What are you here for? Let's get on with it, because that's the program. Then I'm going to not want to go even more, because the Jamie that isn't engaging is the person that I thought I would meet. And I'm just going to have a terrible experience. And I won't change, by the way. I won't do any changing, because I'll become defiant and I'll say, I'll show up, but I'm not going to listen to a darn word you're going to say to me. So there's that spirit and style way of engagement. And then there's this is our program. Somebody sent you here. You're just going to have to do what our program says. And that's human experience. So I don't know if that answers your question, Jamie, but
I would say, I think I'm a pretty kind person, and I'm not, but we just have a lot of problems getting people to show up to their appointments and stuff. And sometimes I actually get people to admit that, like, well, a lot of it's my depression, like I'm not motivated to come in, or this other thing that I felt was more important came up, or since I work in addictions, someone might relapse and they don't want to come back and face me, or you know what I mean? Like there's all kinds of different reasons, but just like trying to motivate people to come back in, or you know what I mean? Like, or to not stop after coming once or twice, even though it's someone that I have a good connection with, that I really connected with, and they say I'm really excited to come back, but then you know what, they will eventually resurface, but it's when they have a need again, you know what I mean? So it's like getting people to come back on a consistent basis is what we struggle, or what I struggle with, I guess.
Well, that was mental health and addiction was the area I worked the most in. What I would say is, if you've got somebody to come back, you're doing okay.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
Really?
they do actually resurface. It just isn't always on a very consistent basis, or I've had someone that didn't show up for 4 months, and then he came back in and he said, I just have to let you know that I stopped coming because I realized I wasn't doing it for me. I was doing it for my girlfriend, but this time I'm here because of me. And then 4 times later, he stopped coming again. So you know what I mean? Like, Yeah, I
do know what you mean. Yeah. And that's the nature of care. That is the nature of care. Now, if that's the only experience you get, is that with all of your patients, is that what you're saying? Or it's just a few?
It's just I guess it's not all of them, no, but it is pretty, and it's not just me that experiences, it's my coworkers, and you know what I mean? I don't know. It's just kind of a theme that we kind of go through. Just we have a high no-show rate, and it's hard to work on change plans with people when we only see them once every, couple months, or when they decide to make it to an appointment. I mean, it seems like people always schedule them. They schedule their appointments. It's just getting to them.
Yeah.
Well,
I have several thoughts going through my head. And I'm trying to figure out how to balance my response to you without getting into a whole other area with getting through the oars. What I would say to you, well, I think what I'll do is I will go on with the presentation, but at the end, I'll respond to you. Okay. Because you're bringing up, I think, some important points. For the sake of the class, I'm just going to go ahead and go on and also get to our activity. And then I'll come back around and tell you what I think about what you're saying. It's a common experience in addiction programs. You're not alone, thankfully you're not alone, but there's ways to address it that are not necessarily about the patient that we can talk about on the other side. Thanks for bringing it up, though. Ella, would you, and Megan, would you remind me to not ignore that or forget it? I'm not going to ignore it. I'll just forget if I get caught up in something. So, all right, so let's go back. So we had a discussion about reflections. Reflections are a good way to show empathy. Empathy is a good way to build relationships. Like Eltina has probably a high level of empathy. If people come to you and flock to you, I guess I would worry more about your own welfare and health if that puts a drain on you, or because you feel responsible. I don't really know, but something to think about. And then how do you balance mixing and blending the ors? How do you do empathic listening as well as use the or skills to help somebody move along to make a decision about resolving their ambivalence? So let's go back to the affirm. And that's affirmations are a type of reflective listening that you specifically use that helps build somebody's confidence. So yeah, go ahead.
Slides right now?
Pardon?
Are you, do you need your slides up right now?
Well, I'm just kind of introducing something and then I'll go
Okay, I
back.
just want to make sure.
Yeah. I actually like talking to people's faces more than a slideshow. So that's kind of a thing that is always throws me on Zoom programs, but okay. There we go. Okay. I think we kind of talked about this. Yeah, I think we've talked about it. We haven't explored it fully because we probably need more experience with it. But if there's any questions or comments along the way about that, I'll revisit empathy next time we talk with a different slide. But right now, let's just, and we did the practice. Okay. So affirmations are, like I said, it's not cheerleading. It's not praising. You're a good person, good for you, that's cheerleading. It's really more about a behavior that you see them doing that moves them along to build confidence and to encourage change. So that's the strategy behind doing affirmations. So you are very courageous that you decided you want to tackle this problem. Your willingness to discuss this important issue is admirable, even though it's not your favorite topic. Thanks for taking the time and consideration to listen to my advice or information. If you're in that point where it's okay to do advice and information. Those are examples of some affirming statements. Some of you are, probably most of you are natural affirmers. The strategy behind affirmations is really, is it about that person? And is it about the change that they're trying to make? And that's how I think about what kind of affirmation could I say that reinforces that person to continue to engage, continue to talk to me, and may have the effect of moving them along in a change process. Doesn't have to be, sometimes it's just a way to keep a conversation going. So that's affirmations, also a way of supporting somebody. Yeah, before I go on to that one, I want to stop here. Okay, so would each of you just take a moment and think of an affirmation that you would offer Ella in her story about making this big change? What kind of affirmation could you offer to her? It's a statement, it's not a question, that you think would have been appropriate in our conversation. So think about something you could have said to her. And, Tosa's saying, okay, behind reflections are assumptions, and I think that's true. We make assumptions all along the way when we're interacting with somebody. Sometimes what you're doing with reflections is you're basically trying to find out if your assumption about that situation is accurate. So what is your assumption behind the affirmation? And go ahead and offer. Go ahead, Jean.
I would say I appreciate you sharing with me. I don't know if it's easy for you, but I'm here to listen and try, I'm here to support you. And just so that they feel, because sometimes when people open up and start to expose themselves, it's sometimes uncomfortable, sometimes scary. And so you want to offer some comfort to them that you're there, so that they feel okay about sharing with you, and what you tell me is I am going to do my best to try to offer you support that'll help you. So, are you, that would be my way to offer affirmation.
So how do we make it, how do you take that idea and make it about her? So think about that. Okay, so Ella, let's try this one. Think about that and formulate the affirmation, Jean. But Sabrina is offering one. Ella, you are the keeper of your destiny. You will be and are capable of deciding what you need to do for your spirit. What's your response, Ella?
Oh, letting that sink in. That is
Yeah,
really,
that's a deep one.
really, really beautiful.
Yeah.
I think I forget that sometimes, and I feel like I have a lot of self-doubt. And I guess when I hear that, instead of giving into almost like those really frightening thoughts of like all the things that could go wrong, I think that it helps me believe in myself and believe in like hopefully like the next steps. And when I hear that, I think about about what would give me strength or what would make me feel like I'm caring for my spirit. And I think that means following that kind of urge I told you about earlier about taking the leap in a time where I feel like that's kind of what my spirit is telling me to do, and pushing me more towards achieving my goals rather than just staying comfortable.
So Sabrina, are you there? I'm going to give you my
Yes, I'm here.
reaction. Can you see that?
Yes.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Good job. Okay, so thank you both for, so that was a deep affirmation, by the way. It wasn't a light-hearted affirmation, but look at how she responded. Okay, so what did that affirmation do? I'm going to change. I got in touch with something that you saw in me that allows me to move forward with change. It gives me that confidence boost, if you will, by speaking to her spirit and speaking to what her spirit is guiding her to do. So good job. Okay, let's do another one. Stacy's offering one. Making big decisions can be scary and sometimes hard, but sometimes those leaps of faith are reaped and with rewards. So that's another affirmation that could be said. Yeah, and it has that same kind of flavor to it that Sabrina's did. So I want to work with Jean because Jean is so enthusiastic and is so present with us that I want to work with Jean to have her master this, this thing that she wants to do. And that is, I want to offer support. So let's work on the words. It's really not about this, the intention. It's about how would I communicate that to her in words. And so the goal is to tell her, I'm here to be with you. I'm here to support you. But it has to be about her. So that's the thing about reflections. It's more about her than you. So if we were to wordsmith this a little bit, what would we say that has that sentiment? I'm here to support you. So let's take a stab at it. Start with thank you. Start with just the word thank you. And let's see what you have to say. Now that you're back from puppy mess, which I totally understand.
Yeah, I was like, what?
Yeah. Okay, so if you started with the word thank you, what would follow from that? That you want to tell her that you're there for her and you want to support her continuing to be present with you.
No,
So start with the word thank you.
no, I'm scared.
I appreciate your scariness, but you know what? You're such a positive learner that I had to go back to you. So thank you. And
Thank
then
you, Ella.
there you go. Thank you, Ella, for
Thank you, Ella, for sharing your story. I appreciate that you had confidence in yourself to talk about it and to share with what you're feeling. And I will do my best to have empathy.
Okay, just stop it where you're feeling. Just stop it where you're feeling, period. Because you don't have to worry about yourself, just her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's repeat that so you can experience that with her. She got it because I saw her head shaking up and down. Thank you, Ella.
Thank you, Ella, for sharing your story and your I guess story is more personal than information. Thank you, Ella, for sharing your story with me. I appreciate you being here with me, and I can listen to you talk.
Okay, good. That's good. Excellent. Ella, do you have a response to that?
Yeah, I think that I think in a session it feels, you know, when I'm talking to someone and I'm sharing a lot of like personal inner thoughts, it's easy for, again, just that feeling of like not only being overwhelmed by my own thoughts, but like almost like, oh, what are they thinking and what are they gonna say? And so I think just right off the bat saying like thank you, I guess, and like just like welcoming all those thoughts in and into this space, it makes me feel a lot like very safe. You know, I feel listened to, but now I definitely feel safe. And like if you're comfortable with all of this chaos and all of these like big things happening, like maybe I can start being okay with them too. And so it's just very like comforting, I would say, when I heard that.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And by the way, I wanted to say, I think your earrings rock.
Yeah, they do, don't they?
Yes.
Almost glocky.
Very nice.
Blurring them, but yeah. They're my favorite.
Okay. Thank you for taking that moment with us, Jane, and being willing to learn this. I mean, your enthusiastic learning. I'm very much enjoying, and thank you for sharing that with us today. Okay. I'm having so much fun with you guys that I just noticed what time it is. Are we supposed to be finishing in 15 minutes? Am I right about that time? I hope you guys are having as much fun as I am, but this is more of a kind of interaction I would like to have with you as learners, where we get to talk to each other and share with each other and practice with each other. And for you to feel comfortable opening up and learning from not just me, but from each other. Because of the time frame, I'll go ahead and finish the S of the ORs. And I'm gonna, if you, for next time, which is a week from today, we'll move more into some real practice with each other in smaller groups. So please remember to send to Ella or Megan your experience with MI. So I get you paired into a group with people with different levels of experience. So let me just do one more slide, then I'll come back around and talk to Jamie about my response to her dilemma with engagement with some people. It's very common in addiction treatment, by the way. So I've figured out ways in my history to address it. Okay, so the S of the ORs is this summary thing is a complicated thing in the text, in the MI text, and it's actually, when you read it, it's more complicated than doing it, because when you're doing it, it's a little bit easier, but basically a summary is another type of reflection. And it's really more about summarizing the important points of a conversation. And it's what I did I did one summary reflection statement in my conversation with Ella, and it was, so on the one hand, and then on the other, that was a way to get her to kind of explore more. So the strategy behind it is, let me affirm. You guys are, as I thought, you guys would be pretty good at affirmations. But it's like, how do I strategize using an MI approach to get people to think about their dilemma without me being part of the dilemma? So again, it's that, focus on the person, not focus on me. And so when I'm talking, I'm thinking, I have to communicate to that other person what I'm hearing them say or think or feel or imply, and not what I think or feel or because if it's just about me, then it comes across maybe as a judgment. So that's the strategy behind using summaries, is it helps you to keep on track with somebody. Make sure that you are understanding them correctly, you are following them correctly, you can be with them in the moment, and they feel all the things that Ella has shared with us that she feels. A transitional summary is one where it's like, say you've spent 2 or 3 meetings with somebody and you're launching into something else, like starting a group session, or so they're meeting with you individually, and in a treatment center, they're going to start a group, and so they won't see you as frequently or something. So basically, at the end of that time frame with somebody, you're basically reviewing everything that you recall them doing with you that helps to keep them motivated towards changing. So an example, well, let me get out of this slideshow. So I'm going to go back to Jamie. This is my way of answering you. So let's just make up Joe. Joe, last time we met, you realized that you were coming here for the wrong reasons. You were coming here for your girlfriend and not for you. And this time, you've indicated that you're here for yourself, that there's something that's motivating you to come here for yourself. And over the course of the last 4 sessions, these are the things that we talked about. We talked about how I'm making this up, by the way, Jamie. how your substance use has interfered with your life. You've talked about how you would like your life to be. You've talked about what's important to you and how you came to a conclusion that it was important to you. You've even talked about your own motivation to come into this clinic and start addressing these issues. What else have you talked about that I need to consider in our conversation with each other that's important to you? So that's an example of how you would use a transitional summary with somebody like Joe. Now, you know Joe at this point. You know Joe's capable of showing up and not showing up. So what you might say to Joe is, you know, in our history, Joe, I've noticed that you show up for a bit and then you disappear and then you show up again. And I'm wondering what you're going to do this time. What kind of pressures are put on you that make you not show up? And would you tell me if you don't show up, how am I supposed to handle that? So if you don't show up, what should I do next? And so what you're doing there is you're saying to Joe, hey, I know, Joe, that you may not show up again, and I'm okay with you coming and going. But if you're on a roll right now, basically, you've been here 4 times. So you're on a roll, but I'm a little worried about that you may not show up the 5th time or 6th time or 7th time. And I really want you to show up often. You may not want that. And so what I know as a professional is if you show up for 3 months, you have a really good chance of continuing on and getting sober. If you show up less than 3 months, I also know that you're in process of trying to get sober. And so I'm not going to tell you that if you're not using, it's part of the process of changing. You don't use for a while, then you go back to it and the bad things happen, then you come back and you use again, and you come back and talk to me. And then, so you just normalize the process of change. And that's what I might do for Joe if it was my patient. Now, here's the additional and a little bit more challenging if you're a staff person. Your system, your program may not be set up for Joe in the sense that the expectations are too high for where he's at in the change process. So what does that mean? Is my program set up to be a change program where people who are ready to change will benefit greatly? Or do I have a place in my program for people who kind of want to change but are ambivalent about changing? Do I have a program for them? Because what you've got is Joe who's ambivalent. That's what you've got. So what does my program offer to Joe who's ambivalent? And that means policies, programming, services, program expectations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can't handle that by yourself. You have to have your program managers, your staff, your supervision, your colleagues. They all have to be willing to entertain helping people like Joe who come and go. And to me, if I have a patient who's coming and going, I have an ambivalent patient. And so I'm not going to offer an ambivalent patient a substance abuse program that requires abstinence. I'm not going to be offering that. I'm going to be offering Joe a program that follows him and allows him to come and go and handles his ambivalence about making a change. You have a kind of to me, a classical ambivalent person who is going to come and go. Now, the beauty of what you're doing, though, is Joe did come back and he came back to you. So that's feedback to me. And the feedback is I'm doing something right because Joe's not afraid to come back and talk to me. So I've got to acknowledge what I'm doing well as how the program structure is. And then I also have to acknowledge that Joe's ambivalent. I have to talk to him in a certain way. Much like Ella, I would not have that conversation with Ella and say, Ella, you're gonna be fine. It's okay. Just hang in there. You know, I'm not going to say that to her because she's ambivalent and she's struggling with her ambivalence. Because what would Ella do? Okay, thanks. Ella's a nice person. She's going to say, okay, thank you. And bye. I won't talk to you again. I got to talk to someone who'll listen to me. That's a kind of a long-winded way of saying you're shaking your head at an acknowledgement, I'm assuming. Thoughts?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, yeah, we do offer a program where they're not expected to be totally abstinent to come back. So that's something we are doing. So yeah, and I do always acknowledge with them that I don't want you to ever feel like you can't come back here and talk to me about relapse or using. That's what I'm here for. So, I do talk about that too. Yeah, I think, yeah, I do. I wrote down some things that you said though, so that's good. If you don't show up, how should I handle that? That's a good one. I never thought about that. Like, how would you like me to handle that if you don't come to your next appointment? And we do reach out to people. We have case managers that will reach out to people, things like that. So we do that too. So yeah, I got some things that are helpful. So thank you.
If you're dealing with somebody do you deal with people in the criminal justice system?
I was just gonna say that sometimes when people are told they have to come, so when I'm doing an assessment on somebody, it's really clear. I've done so many of them. It's really clear to me when somebody doesn't want help because they give you very minimal information. They tell you, I'm not using, I'm doing good, I'm great. Haven't used since I got arrested. I don't need your help pretty much, and then the ones that, people that do want change will say, oh my gosh, it's out of control and it's causing me all these problems and I need, and so, yeah, I think that sometimes when people are court ordered or told they have to come see us, it's a little bit harder. It's a lot more difficult. And I think that's when motivational interviewing probably is very important because sometimes they're just here. I'm just here because I'm told I have to come. I don't need help. I don't drink that much, stuff like that. So,
yeah, and that's where MI is the most important practice. In fact, I worked with young people and they all pretty much said that. so I was going to suggest also with criminal justice, young people, if they have probation officers or they're court ordered, I created ambivalence for them by saying, well, you got a dilemma. And the dilemma is the court's requiring you to be here. You don't think you need to be here. And my job is to help you figure out how to meet the court expectations. So I reframe it as their dilemma with the court, not with you. And then when you struggle with, if you have a dirty urine, for example, and the court expects me to report that, how would you like me to do that? And they'll often ask you to lie for them in various ways. And you say, because, I'm required to report this, but it's really much more important. And my goal would be for you to report it yourself. And that starts a big old conversation about their dilemma, because it's their dilemma. It's not the court's dilemma. It's not your dilemma. It's their dilemma. And it's really up to them to decide how they're going to resolve that dilemma. So for the person you just described, I don't have a problem. I really don't need to be here. It's like, okay, so, if you don't need to be here, but you're here, see, there's the ambivalence right there. What would you, why are you here? Well, the court sent me. Okay, so the court sent you, so why did you agree to come? The court sent me. Okay, well, yeah, but did the court get in your car and drive you here in cuffs? Or did you decide to come? Well, I had to come. Okay, well, what motivated you to come? What'd you say?
I said, I had my mute on. I said, a lot of times it's, I don't want to go back to jail.
So there's the dilemma. So really the issue is, I want my freedom. So you walk them to that. What you're doing is you're moving from external motivation to internal motivation. So that's strategy.
Your freedom. That's what I'm here to help you with.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. So really you're here to get your freedom back, to feel comfortable not losing your freedom. That's your number one goal. And then MI, you see, that's how MI would interact with an MI approach, would interact with something like that. I use this all the time with the population that you're describing. That was my population. And I used it all the time and it worked pretty well. It's not 100%, but it works. It worked pretty well initially to get that internal struggle out and to be able to talk about it. And then of course, it's always about them. It's always about them. It's always about them. And so the fact that we have pressure on us in a program or supervisors or the court system or whatever puts pressure on us, I always it's kind of like, it's like a Tai Chi movement. I'm going to Tai Chi that back to the client. I'm going to move it back to them.
Our psychologist told me one time that if he has someone that's has facing federal charges and they have a probation officer and then they have to come see him and they're not following through or not doing things they're supposed to be doing, he'll say, so do we need to start working on preparing you for prison? Is that, is that what you want me to help you with? Because I'm trying to help, work with you in what your goals are. But right at this point, it seems like I might need to get you ready for prison. And I was like, oh my, and he says that kind of motivates them, makes them rethink some of the stuff they're doing. But
well, that's more confrontational. But what I might do is I'd say, I have a reflection to offer to you. Do you want to hear it? Mm-hmm. And then offer them that. Because really what you're saying and what you're doing equates with you not being successful with what you want. Mm-hmm. And that's your dilemma. That's a softer way of doing that very same thing. You could demotivate somebody if you got too confrontational.
I'm not exactly sure how he says it to him, but he was just sharing that with me.
Yeah. Well, it's true. And it really depends on your relationship with the client. You could say that to a client you have a solid relationship with and be fine. I'm going overboard. Jamie, thank you for talking about that. I hope that was helpful in any stretch or imagination. But thank you all for being here today. And we will, no homework other than to get us the information for, if you haven't set your mailing address, if you want to get the follow-up stuff, and also our request that you let us know how much MI exposure you've had for our next session. So thanks everybody, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.